playground at Greenview Park was almost empty that crisp autumn morning. A light breeze whispered through the red and gold leaves, making them dance lazily to the ground. The smell of damp earth mixed with the faint sweetness of freshly fallen foliage, and the only sound was the squeak of a lone swing somewhere in the distance. Isabella Turner sat on a worn wooden bench, her fingers wrapped around a paper coffee cup, though she barely sipped from it. Her eyes were fixed on the small figure standing by the sandbox a few meters away, a little girl in a puffy pink coat, a knitted hat with floppy ears pulled snug over her head. That was Emma, her 5-year-old daughter. Emma stood still, one mittened hand clutching a stuffed rabbit with a crooked ear, the other buried in her coat pocket. She wasn't playing. She wasn't talking. She was simply watching. Isabella's heart ached at the sight. She'd told herself this morning would be different. She had cleared her entire schedule, postponed investor calls, ignored the endless stream of emails that normally consumed her. She had decided that today, it would just be her and Emma. No nannies, no assistants, no distractions, just them. She tried again. Emma, sweetheart, Isabella called softly. Do you want to try the slide? Emma turned her head slightly, just enough for Isabella to catch a glimpse of those wide hazel eyes. But she didn't answer. She hadn't answered in over a year. Isabella's chest tightened. She could still remember the day Emma's voice went silent, the day her father had left, his angry shouts echoing through their home. The slam of the front door so loud, it made Emma flinch and drop the toy she'd been holding. Since then, not a single word. The doctors called it selective mutism, saying it was trauma-induced, but naming it didn't make it any easier to bear. She had tried everything. Top speech therapists, child psychologists, play-based programs. Emma would listen, nod, sometimes even smile faintly, but she wouldn't speak. Not to anyone. Isabella took a slow sip of coffee, trying to ignore the dull throb of helplessness pressing against her ribs. That was when she noticed him. A tall man was walking toward the swings, his hand wrapped around that of a small boy who looked to be around Emma's age. He wore a worn leather jacket, faded jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low. There was something about his stride, steady, unhurried, that contrasted with the way most parents rushed through parks. Already thinking about the next errand, the boy, in a bright blue hoodie, was laughing as he kicked up piles of leaves with his sneakers. When they reached the swings, he let go of the man's hand and bounded toward the sandbox. High, the boy said cheerfully to Emma, dropping down beside her. He immediately began scooping sand into a small red bucket, humming some tune under his breath. Emma's eyes followed the movement of the shovel in his hand. She didn't move closer, but she didn't turn away either. You can help me, the boy offered, holding out the extra plastic shovel. Emma blinked. Her mitten twitched. She glanced back at Isabella, who gave her the smallest encouraging nod. She doesn't talk much, Isabella said, directing the words toward the man who had just crouched down beside the boy. Her tone was apologetic, almost defensive, as if she had to explain Emma's silence to everyone they met. The man looked at Emma, his expression gentle. That's okay, he said softly. I don't talk much in the mornings either. For a moment, Isabella thought she saw a flicker of amusement in Emma's eyes. A tiny spark that had been missing for so long. I'm Jack, the man said, straightening and offering a quick handshake to Isabella. This is my son, Noah. Isabella, she replied. She didn't elaborate, didn't mention Turner Innovations, or the fact that she was one of the youngest CEOs in the state. He didn't seem to care about any of that anyway. His focus remained on the kids. For several minutes. Noah chatted to Emma, as if her silence didn't bother him in the slightest. He told her about the castle he was building, about how it needed a moat. and about how his last sandcastle had been destroyed by the great shoe monster, a dog that had run through the sandbox. Emma watched him, her lips pressing together in thought. Then Noah began humming again, and soon he was making up a silly little song about a rabbit that could fly. He flapped his arms dramatically, nearly tipping over the bucket of sand. Emma's gaze shifted to the stuffed rabbit in her hands. Your rabbit can fly too, Noah said, pointing to it. What's his name? Isabella's breath caught. She knew the answer. She'd whispered that name to Emma countless times, but she also knew what usually came next. Silence. And then, it happened. So softly, so quietly, Isabella almost thought she imagined it. Emma's lips parted, and a single word escaped. Bunny. The sound of her daughter's voice, after so many months of absence, was like a jolt straight through Isabella's heart. She froze, her coffee forgotten in her hands, her eyes wide. Jack's brows lifted slightly, but he didn't make a big deal of it. He simply smiled and said, Bunny's a great name. Emma looked at him for a second longer, before turning back to Noah. Isabella saw it, the tiniest smile forming on her daughter's face. Not forced, not fleeting, but real. For the next 30 minutes, Isabella sat on the bench like someone afraid to wake from a fragile dream. The air was brisk enough to make her fingers cold, but she hardly noticed. Her entire focus was locked on the small miracle unfolding a few feet away in the sandbox. Emma wasn't speaking in full sentences, far from it, but the silence that had wrapped itself around her for over a year was beginning to crack. Tiny, precious words slipped through. Bucket. Castle. Bunny, fly. Each one landed in Isabella's heart like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples through the numbness she'd been living in for so long. She kept her breathing slow, careful, as if even the sound of it might shatter the moment. Jack stayed close, kneeling now and then to help Noah pack the sand tighter, or to show Emma how to tip the bucket for a clean tower. His movements were unhurried, his voice steady and low, and his eyes, they carried the kind of patience Isabella rarely saw in adults, let alone strangers. He never pressed Emma for more. He never even commented on her speaking again, as though it was the most ordinary thing in the world. It was Noah who carried the conversation, stringing together bits of nonsense about sandcastles that turned into pirate ships and secret forts. He seemed to instinctively fill the air just enough for Emma to contribute in tiny, tentative bursts. And she did, not often, but enough to make Isabella's throat tighten every time. The wind shifted, sharper now, and Noah tugged at his father's sleeve. Daddy, can we get hot chocolate? The one with the marshmallows? Jack looked at him, then over at Isabella. We were going to that little cafe across the street. You and Emma are welcome to join us. The invitation caught Isabella off guard. She hesitated, instinctively glancing at her watch, though for once, she wasn't late for anything. Her days were usually a blur of meetings and deadlines, and she didn't do spontaneous. But then she saw Emma. The faint pink on her cheeks wasn't just from the cold. There was a light in her eyes, one Isabella hadn't seen in months. All right, she said finally, her voice quiet but certain. The cafe was small, with fogged-up windows and the warm scent of cinnamon and fresh bread wrapping around them the moment they stepped inside. Jack held the door open for them, and Isabella guided Emma to a booth by the window while he ordered. When he returned, he set a steaming mug of hot chocolate in front of Emma, topped with a generous swirl of whipped cream and 2 marshmallows, floating like tiny white boats. She blinked at it, then glanced up at him, and for the briefest moment, Isabella thought she might say thank you, but instead, Emma simply curled her mittenless fingers around the cup, holding it close. Jack slid into the seat across from them, Noah beside him. "So, Isabella," he said lightly, "you live around here?" Asterisk, she nodded. "A few blocks away. And you?" Asterisk, "Other side of town," he said. "Closer to the river." He took a sip of his coffee, then smiled faintly. "It's quieter there. I like quiet." Asterisk, they talked as the kids sipped their drinks, the conversation drifting in an unexpected direction. Not about work. He didn't ask her what she did, and she didn't volunteer it. Instead, they spoke about parenting, about the odd mix of exhaustion and fierce love, about how no one really prepares you for the weight of being the one person your child depends on completely. Asterisk, Jack told her he'd been raising Noah on his own since the boy was 2. His mom wasn't ready for all of this, he said, gesturing toward Noah with a small, almost rueful smile. "She left. We've been figuring things out together ever since." Asterisk, Isabella felt a pang of recognition. "I know how that goes," she murmured, though she didn't explain. She didn't have to. Asterisk, he didn't ask for details, just nodded like he understood. And she realized he probably did. Asterisk, Emma sat quietly through most of it, sipping her drink and nibbling at a small cookie Jack had gotten for her. Every so often, Noah would lean toward her with a question or a joke, and she'd give a small answer or an even smaller smile. Isabella couldn't stop herself from watching every exchange. Asterisk winced the muted gold of the leaves. Emma's pink coat bobbed beside him as they darted toward the park entrance, their laughter mingling in the cold air. Asterisk, Isabella and Jack walked a few paces behind, their steps matched without effort. Asterisk, "Thank you, S."